Right. Okay. So that was an amazing talk. Blown my mind this morning. So we're now going to talk to Alex Clough from Splendid Communications, and he's going to take us through the case study about the Greggs vegan sausage roll.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be speaking here today at Social Day. Hope everybody's doing okay. I'm not in misty Colorado, as the background suggests. I'm actually in misty London instead. As I say, I'm really glad to be here today, taking you through the campaign for launching the vegan sausage roll, really getting under the hood of how we launched that product. Just want to say thank you to Patrick for that session. Now I was watching, it was really interesting to see. The Gorilla Spirit experiment is always a personal favorite of mine. It's a surefire way to freak out any strategist in training. And what you said about brand narratives really struck a chord as well. It's what we shape for our clients every day, and Greggs is one of those clients. So without further ado, we will crack on through the case study of how we launched the Greggs vegan sausage roll. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be taking you through 4 key things. We'll do a bit of an introduction to people first creativity, which is what Splendid does and what we've been doing for Greggs for a number of years. We'll take you through a very brief history of Greggs Social, because it's important to understand the context and where we came from to understand where we got to with the vegan sausage roll campaign. I'll then take you through a bit of a step-by-step of the vegan sausage roll campaign itself, from brief to insight to activation to big idea to how it landed. And then at the end, I've just got 7 splendid tips for how we create fame in social using our people first creativity methodology. So quite a lot to get through, but should be fine for the 30 minutes. And at the end, hopefully we'll have some time for some questions. So first of all, who's Splendid? Well, Splendid is a communications agency in Shoreditch, London, but we have reach in several other markets around the world. And what we do is shape brand narratives, as I say, for our clients. What that means is we're actually, we don't consider ourselves a PR agency or a social agency or an activation agency. We consider ourselves an agency that brings to life ideas for clients that's going to resonate with people in their real lives, which people first creativity is. It's ideas that connect brands with real people in their real lives to make a real impact. And by impact, we don't necessarily mean for good. It just means a genuine resonance and genuine impact in a real way and measurable way for the client. And we have 2 key things that underpin that. We have a strategic methodology, which mixes real-world data with real-world conversation, ultimately to find what we think is the crux of people-first creativity, is understanding the attitude and the motivation behind real people and why they do what they do and why they want what they want. And if we can crack that, then we're able to find ways to connect our brands and our clients to that. And we also have what we call the cultural rangefinder, which was what we actually worked on for Greggs over a 5-year period that finished with the vegan sausage roll launch, of how do you take a brand from talking about themselves, from living in the brand world in a way that's relatively uninteresting for real people, and take them from that brand world through their product, through moments and mindsets, and into a genuine lifestyle conversation where we build affinity and loyalty and drive more mainstream awareness for the client. And we do this for all of our clients, but Greggs was the client that we've seen most success. And ultimately, if we were to summarize what Splendid does, is we try to keep it real. We try to not live in the bubble of marketing. We try to make sure we deeply understand the insights that underpin real people. And we like to make sure our clients keep it real as well with their communications. One of the clients that we do that for is Greggs. Now, when we started working with Greggs, they just had a bit of a social buzz about an unfortunate Wikipedia entry change which I'm not going to talk about on this call, be fame, but if you want to find out what it is, just Google Greggs, Google and Scum, and you will find that out all for yourself. So they brought us on because they saw that they needed and had an opportunity to change fundamentally how people felt and saw their brand via social media. They didn't have the money for big advertising. They knew that they were never going to be able to spend as much as their key competitors of McDonald's, KFC, Subway, and many others. So how were they going to shift that perception and move from a follower to a leader in the food on the go category? What they were going to do that via social media. And they came to us to do that. So what I'm going to take you through now is a very, very brief history of our social work from Greggs from 2015 through to 2019. And the reason why is because one of the key learnings and tips that we'll have at the end about why this campaign was successful and how you guys can maybe take something away to apply to your clients is because this doesn't happen overnight. A campaign like the vegan sausage roll was the crowning glory of 5 years of really hard work, primarily in social and PR, to change how people feel about the brand, to build a cult personality that attracted both real people and thought leaders and the media, which meant that when we had a game-changing product, we were able to leverage it to its fullest extent, and the rest is history. So I'm going to take you through very briefly now the three key stages of that journey. So first of all, we knew we had a job just to turn people from haters into lovers. And we were never going to do that simply by shouting about the fact that there are 96 layers of buttery pastry in a sausage roll, even though that is a very interesting fact. Instead, what we had to do was very quickly move our communities from being all about Greggs to being all about our audience and being real world and connecting to the conversations that our audience care about. And we did that in a number of ways. I don't know whether anybody remembers the Rihanna dress from the Met Gala that looked like a lot of things. People started to Photoshop in things into that dress, and we were one of the first to do that. We Photoshopped a steak bake into that dress, and it got featured in all the national newspapers. And when we did that, we realized that we were onto something. We realized that actually by being a bit braver, by being a bit cultural, by being really playful and fundamentally entertaining, we would be able to turn people from people who didn't care or actively disliked the brand into people that started to like our communications. Through many other examples, we ended up finishing that year with BuzzFeed writing an article about our work 19 times Greggs was utterly brilliant at Twitter, which was a real moment for us and the brand, and to show that what we were doing here was something quite different and was genuinely cultural. So once we built that cult following, what we had to then do was figure out how we turned that cult fame into something that was going to drive some commercial impact. We've built the community, we've built our engagement up. We're known now for this kind of content, and loads of other brands are copying us. A famous burger retailer that shall remain nameless tended to do an almost identical post a few days after we posted one live. So it was clear that we had that cultural fame. But how are we going to turn that into some commercial impact? And so then we started to leverage our community to talk about new products, to talk about quality cues, to connect it to some more specific occasions and products and day parts. And what we learned is that when we talked about specific products at specific times, we actually started to see an increase in like-for-like sales. And once we'd done that, we were able to then really push forward by being innovative, by being quick, by being agile, to really start to shift the brand perception. For example, we launched the first ever branded WhatsApp group as a piece of loyalty communications around our famous festive bake, which ended up generating huge national coverage as well as huge social following, which is quite incredible given there was only 250 people in the group. We also decided to really put our necks out and be a little bit more brave and tongue-in-cheek with our reactive social communications, such as when when someone identified that Britney Spears followed Greggs. We still don't know why. Naturally, we responded with "that's her prerogative," and just that tweet alone generated, as you can see, more than 18,000 likes and almost 4,000 retweets. So we were suddenly moving from the bakery from Newcastle, had almost no brand affinity within the mainstream at large. It had a very dedicated customer base, but suddenly we wanted to take that brand on a journey. And through these 3 stages, we were able to do that, which meant that the stage was then set for the vegan sausage roll. So now what I'm going to do is take you through a bit of a stage by stage of how we developed the campaign, devised the creative, executed the campaign, how it landed, and then at the end, as I say, we'll go through some top tips. So this is a social day festival, and as ever, brands that are famous for their social, a lot of the really big ideas that travel well beyond social start in a social media conversation, and this one is one of those examples. In 2018, Peter actually started a petition for Greggs to create the vegan version of its most iconic product. Now, Peter isn't really this kind of that you can ignore. It really picks up momentum, and the very vocal online vegan community really got behind this campaign. Suddenly, there was 20,000 signatures. So we went away and we worked with the Greggs team, and we said, maybe it's time for you to go away and with your food wizards in the development team, figure out whether this is even possible. Fast forward a few months, and we are sent up to Newcastle for a secret taste test where we are revealed as the agency team the first vegan sausage roll. And we knew straight away we were onto a hit. So we had very bold ambitions right from the get-go. So that's when we started to sit down with the client and shape our brief. And this is one of the tips we'll come on to, but the reason why we got really excited about this brief is because, as with a lot of how we worked with Greggs and how we work on all of our clients, than social. Even if social is the primary activation channel and social is where we want to see success and impact, we have to think bigger than social, because that way we're going to be able to tap into something deeper than just a channel with the audience that we're trying to reach. So with the client, we shaped 3 key objectives for our campaign: fame and engagement. Ultimately, Greggs is a national food on the go retailer. It has to sell at high volume products to justify its development. So we knew that we had to drive national fame and engagement. We had to create huge national demand. But the big overarching brief for Greggs for a long time has been, how do we make more people love us? How do we shift perception? So we knew that we had to build advocacy and build community to be able to encourage consideration and trial, not just from our existing audience or just from a vegan audience, but from everybody, from a huge, wide audience. And lastly, how can we then develop our credentials and shift perceptions of this brand to be a more modern, a more responsive, a more inclusive food on the go brand? And all of those 3 things together, we knew would ultimately drive sales. So how did we start? Well, first of all, we really understood the unique Greggs challenge. This wasn't the same as Pret a Manger or Costa launching a vegan product, because they are a bit more cosmopolitan. They have probably a bit more of a modern customer base. What we knew here is that there is a hardcore customer base of Greggs that are still in love with the brand because of its sausage rolls, its steak bakes, and its personality. So even though our range was diversifying, we knew that we had to basically stay firmly in the mainstream. If we deviated from that, we would alienate our core customer. And we knew that actually there was a risk that simply by virtue of us doing a version of one of the most iconic, favorite, most loved products, we may still alienate. So how do we launch this new innovative product that's going to shift this brand forward without alienating the people that come to us every single morning and queue for their coffee and bacon roll? Well, first of all, we always start with real people. That's what people first creativity is. We started with real people. We modeled our audience. We use a mixture of Pulsar, Audience, and Global Web Index, as well as doing some report research via published journals and societies. And we stumbled upon something quite interesting. So we knew that from being in the marketing world and being, delivering PR campaigns and social campaigns for a whole range of clients, more and more we were being given vegan briefs. more and more vegan products are being launched. The vegan section of supermarkets was growing. So we knew that this was absolutely the right time for them to be launched. But we found something from our research. Yes, the UK launched more vegan products than any other nation. Yes, participation in Veganuary had at the time grew by 183%. And according to a study by Waitrose, and this was the real sort of mind-blowing stat, a third of Brits were reducing their meat intake. So it was clear this was the right product at the right time. But then we found some tension in that insight that we felt led to our a creative opportunity. Because even though a third of Brits are reducing their meat intake, as few as 20% said they would consider going fully vegan. That means 80% of people would never consider branding themselves as vegan, but yet a third of them are reducing their meat intake. So what was really clear was that there was some resistance to this concept of pure veganism, even though people were aware of the benefits of reducing their meat intake. The economy was polarized, and fundamentally people were still meat eaters. So when you compare that with who Greggs are and what we sell, we knew that we had a bit of a tension here. So what that then enabled us to do is clarify our brief a bit. We knew that there was probably a bit of a disconnect between the amount of noise and novelty that vegan products were receiving in the media and in social compared to the actual scale of the commercial opportunity. So we knew straight away that simply appealing to vegans would not be enough. A campaign targeting vegans would not deliver the results that Greggs needed for this to be a success. We had to figure out a way to launch a vegan product, but position it as something for everybody. This wasn't a vegan brief, this was an inclusivity brief, which then gave us our creative strategy. So we knew straight away that actually, if this is a product for all, this needed to feel more important than any other vegan product. We were launching in Veganuary, January the 1st. Everybody and their brother will be going out with a vegan product. How do we make this stand out? We make it stand out by being not a vegan product at all. This is an evolution of a national icon. This was Sausage Roll 2.0. And once we'd landed that creative strategy, the idea flowed really simply. This was not a sausage roll for vegans. This was a sausage roll for everybody. This is the sausage roll of the future. It's the next generation of sausage roll. And we started mining culture for fun, playful ways that maybe Greggs alone had permission to, in a very tongue-in-cheek way, subvert and try and create some humor around. We mined culture for reference points for our audience to help them get that, to help them understand that actually what we're doing here is innovative and it's tech and it's new. We're not changing something. The original sausage roll isn't going away. What we're doing here is just creating an evolution, creating the next generation. And when we landed on Apple and the iconic style of Apple product launches, the keynote speakers from Steve Jobs, we knew that we had our culture reference point, which led to our hero asset, which led to the campaign's success. So what you'll have seen in there is lots of little jokes, lots of little asides. The more you watch it, the more you see, and the funnier it becomes. Like user interface into user's face, vegan core, and obviously designed in Newcastle by Greggs instead of designed in California by Apple. And once we had that core creative construct, we were then able to build an entire 360 campaign around this central idea, this idea of the next generation, this idea that this product is for sausage rolls what the iPhone was for mobile phones. So then we had to think about how that idea could carry through to getting this product into people's hands. Ultimately, this product was going to be won and lost about how well it tasted. We could build this amazing campaign around it, but if it didn't taste very good and people didn't try it and advocate for it and say, yes, this tastes great, then we would never deliver that final big objective of sales. But we knew it did taste great. All we had to do was think of a really disruptive, standout, creative way that's connected to our core social asset to be able to get that in hand. So what we did is design vegan sausage roll style iPhone boxes that, as you lifted it up, had the same slow release feel from them. And we sent them out to everywhere. That morning, the morning of release, it was on broadcast television. It was being tweeted by Vice influencers, by Mirror journalists, you name it. Anybody who got it was talking about it. But we knew that really importantly, it was most important early on to get the vegan social community on side. These were the guys in social, via Peter, via that survey, that had started this whole journey. We could launch it, but if we didn't make sure these guys loved it, wanted it, advocated for it, and had some real trust that this was a product that they could enjoy for a long time, then we would never be able to truly move the brand forward. So we sent out some early samples to the vegan social community and got them on side really early. And what they did, were able to make sure that the vegan community, even if the vegan community alone wanted to buy this product, we had that real core ready to buy as soon as it went in store. We then launched our campaign video, "The wait is over, #vegan sausage roll." And we got some results coming up, but 8.8 million views, of which 6.6 million were unpaid. And we only got those paid views once the natural cycle of virality had passed, and we needed to make sure it was visible for the rest of January. But right there in that first week, we didn't spend any money on media. It was the campaign, it was the support of PR, the intersection of influence, PR, and social together meant that our campaign went viral. And one of my favorite tweets was, given that this campaign started from Peter, was Greggs has done more to promote vegan day than Peter have in their entire history. We didn't flag that to Peter, though. The great thing about building a brand over a long period and making it a darling child of the UK media for great ideas, great creativity, and that's a mixture from Splendid, from the internal team, from Taylor Herring on PR, from Havis on press office and PR. There was a real big collective of agencies that did this. But once your brand is the darling of the media, which only comes from a long-term strategy with a really consistent vision. When you do something as innovative as this, and you have a really rich, great asset-based campaign around it, the product itself becomes national news. You don't have to push very hard to make it go great guns. And this is an example of that. We got blanket media coverage simply for the virtue of the product. But then we go back to social. Like, the campaign could have ended there. We've launched the asset, the video picks up momentum, blanket coverage, everyone loves the product. It could have stopped. But because we had permission in social media, because we built this cult personality over a number of years, we knew that we could go out there and maybe do what other brands didn't have permission to do, which is lean into the negativity and harness the positivity. And what we were able to do is be really brave, really agile. We had a great working relationship with the client team, which meant we're able to be right there in the moment. Very, very easy approval process. We were able to do things like this. For example, Piers Morgan waded in famously. I hope he isn't on the call, by the way. Hi, Piers, if you are. But nobody was waiting for a vegan bloody sausage, you PC ravaged clowns. And our response, now famous, is, "Oh, hello, Piers, we've been expecting you." Now, by doing that, and the response that tweet and our reply got, you then start a whole other news. And suddenly this wasn't about Greggs launches the vegan sausage roll. This was about Greggs it does a hilarious reply to Piers Morgan, who hates the vegan sausage roll. And then lots of other people then start to chime in who hate it. And then you've got replies such as this: "Can you call it a sausage if there's no meat in it?" Well, we did. "I hope it's horse meat. We're not sure that's vegan, is it?" So suddenly you're able to really challenge the people who maybe aren't engaging their brain before they tweet in a way that our advocates and our mainstream audience that really love what we're doing will respond positively to. As a result of this, it trended on Twitter for 3 straight days. Every day we came back and there was a new batch of conversation, new people had waded in, creating more conversation and more responsiveness. Loads of famous faces joined the campaign. Jay McGuinness tweeted for the second day in a row that we'd run out. Chris Packham, big advocate. Susanna Reid, Piers' co-host, tweeted that she was craving a vegan sausage roll. Richard Osman wrote us a poem, and maybe Chubuddy G's tweet is possibly my favourite. For anyone who's seen the Fire Festival documentary, you will know exactly why that is so funny. But this is a really important moment in the campaign. We noticed that this was starting to take on a bit of a life of its own. It was starting to get beyond us. And actually, if we tried to control this and respond to everything and be there in every interaction, we were going to oversaturate ourselves. We were going to behave like we were trying a bit too hard. And one of the big things that we believe in is knowing when to talk, but knowing when to shut up and letting the campaign take a life of its own. And that's what happened. We took our foot off the gas and the conversation continued. And as a result, people started making Christmas cards. People started doing heart and sending it in. We started getting thought leadership pieces about what this says about Brexit Britain. People misunderstood a BNP rally outside of Greggs store for people protesting about the vegan sausage roll. Things just took on a life of its own. But that only happened because we gave the campaign the right framework to do so, and then took our foot off the gas and let the conversation run itself. And my favourite article from the campaign was from Zoe Williams, who I haven't yet to see evidence that it's done anything to heal our fractured nation, but she suggested that perhaps if Greggs can dominate the vegan market like this, we might be looking at phase 1 in national healing. And as a result, Greggs became brand of the year and it won us quite a few gongs. But how did it do against our objectives? It created fame and engagement. 69% of adults reached 11 times, million views of the film, 1,300 pieces of 24 million organic reach on Twitter alone. We grew our community by 23% because of this campaign. And you can bet that they are people who may never have stepped in a Greggs ever before. A 6 times increase in brand mentions, 58 times increase in Greggs and veganism, but perhaps you'd expect that. And really importantly, this was one of the best stats for us, is that 80% of customers would now shop with Greggs more often because we had this product. But most importantly, it became available in all 2,000 shops. It shifted our brand perception. It delivered the best brand awareness we'd had since we last did TV, which was back in 2012, and 14.1% like-for-like sales, which wasn't solely for the vegan sausage roll, because actually what we saw was a halo effect that this product delivered over the rest of our range, but it was significantly contributed to. And it's the fastest selling product in the last 5 years. So very quickly, what are our 7 tips for how you can take how we approach this product launch and maybe apply them to your own campaign? First of all, think bigger than social. Sometimes it is, but rarely is the channel the idea. You need to step back. You need to think bigger. You need to think about real people, think about your target audience, and think about where they want to see communications from you, and be able to frame a campaign to not just do that in social, but travel into lots of other places. Need to find real insight, not passive observations, not marketing cliches, not assumed wisdom. You need to do the work, find that real insight, find the tension, find a problem that you can solve in a way that you have permission to. Because if you don't stay true, you're going to be found out. If you try to do something in a way that you don't have permission to and skip the steps and go straight to the end point, you'll be found out. You won't have the community. You won't have the credibility. You won't have the permission to be that brand yet. So you have to stay true to who you are and remain authentic at all times. You have to stand out. One of the big issues brands make, particularly in social media, is assuming people are sat there waiting to see their content. They are not. You are not just competing against other brands. You are competing for attention from their loved ones, their family, their friends. their influencers that they follow, amazing content, amazing videos. They are not waiting for you. You have to stand out to do so. You need a great asset, you need a great idea, and you need to really craft your assets to connect with them. Know when to talk, but also know when to shut up. You've got to know when to stop and to let the conversation take on its own journey, or understand that the conversation has run its course and know that any more communication may devalue the great work that you've already done. Knowing when to talk is just as important as knowing when to stop. When you feel like magic is starting to happen, you've got to take your hands off and let the conversation take over. Be real, be responsive, be humorous, be social. But when it starts to take on a life of its own, have the confidence and the bravery to make decisions, to not step into everything, to not contribute to everything, to not reply to everything. Let magic have space. And lastly, this won't happen overnight. You can't shortcut to this. You need to have a vision, understand where you need to get to, but always evolve and try new things of how you reach it. And if you can move from a position that Greg's had, which is low brand, low consideration, to the level that we achieved as a result of this campaign, then that's proof that having a vision and setting out how you reach it is the right way to launch a famous product like this. And that's how we launched the vegan sausage roll, and our 7 splendid tips for how to build famous campaigns in social. I'd like to hand over now, I think, is Stuart going to come back? Maybe? Or whoever. But any questions, do let me know.
Hey, Alex, Stuart here.
Hello, Stuart.
You may not see me, but I am on screen with you. Firstly, brilliant. Oliver Daly has coined it perfectly. I think the audience feeling is pastry sweats over here.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's hardly meat sweats, but I'm a big believer in getting a and a vegan one, and having one for starter, one for main.
So I think you're probably going to have to check out the small spike in visits during the coffee break today, because I think a few people are probably heading out to pick up a treat. We've got a couple of questions. I mean, you packed in so much there, so thank you for sharing that with us. But a couple of questions, particularly one around the WhatsApp group here. Let me just find it. Ash McGinnis has said, does the branded WhatsApp group get out of hand from a community management point of view?
Great question. Yes, it does. And you've got to be prepared for that. And it was really funny. So we created one WhatsApp group, but then because of demand, we created a second. And after we closed the groups down, a small collective, the first group, created their own WhatsApp group, free of any brand moderation, called Festive Bake WhatsApp OG. And because they didn't want these newcomers getting in the way of their conversation. That was the upside. Suddenly, what you've done is connect real people together around your brand purely by the love of one of your products. The downside is that you've got to make sure you build enough time, if you're an agency, into the budget. But if you're doing it internally, then you've got to have a really strong team around you to be able to moderate it, because you can't set any parameters to auto remove, to auto hide, any keyword blocking. You can't do that. What you have to do is do manual moderation, and it was time exhaustive. But fortunately, we didn't get any really unsavory content. All we would do is just get a lot of nonsense, really. A lot of people just sharing what they're up to with us, which was a really interesting social experiment about you move a brand communication into a place where they're used to having normal conversations with their friends and family, and suddenly they change how they talk to you.
Another question from Elodie. Is engagement as important as the campaign proactive posts themselves? And would you advise brands to make sure to review their tone of voice and engagement guidelines before every campaign?
Oh, sorry, Stuart, you cut out there a little bit. I think I heard the first part, which is the proactive publishing as important as the engagement? I think I'll answer that, and then if you can just remind me what it was.
And also, the second part of the question was, should brands review their tone of voice before each campaign?
Before a campaign, I think. But if on the tone of voice piece, I think you can't be schizophrenic. So what I would say is, if you want to evolve your brand tone of voice, that needs to be part of that vision piece that I talked about. Like who do you want to be? Where do you want to get to? How do you talk in a way that's going to take you on that journey? But if you go from safe to brave in an instant, it's probably going to shock or alienate the people that already follow you. If you don't have a big community, that's much less of an issue. But if you have 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, million people, suddenly becoming a different brand is like being a different person to your friends. It will jar. So be careful with that one. On the point about our proactive publishing more important than the community engagement, no. But you can't. I believe you can't do one without the other. Publishing a post and then just never responding to people means you are going to be out on opportunities. Without that proactive publishing, you're never going to start the conversation. So I don't think you can separate them. I think they go hand in hand, but you need to make sure that you have the right asset, and then you thought through the kind of conversation it might create, and you're there and you're ready, and it's agile and it's quick. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on the opportunity.
Brilliant, Alex. We've come to we've run out of time. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you for coming and sharing those insights. That's been hugely beneficial for everybody listening. You've had some great feedback in the app, which go and have a look at. I think I really enjoyed listening to your session. It was a massively successful campaign. I think that's massively clear. We look forward to hopefully seeing you next year, and you can talk about the next success that you guys have had.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for your time. I've really enjoyed putting sharing it. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a really great rest of the day.
Brilliant. Give it up for Alex Clough. Thank you.